Good morning. How you doing? It's Phil Thatch, and today I'm at the Tennessee Riverpark, and I'm going to try to do some macro photography. I've got a new setup this year. I've got a new blind. I have a new diffuser made by Cygnustech, which I had to order from Australia, and I've got a new flash, a Godox V350, and today I'm using the R6 Mark II and the RF 100mm macro lens, and I'm at another blue railing. The Tennessee Riverpark, when they have railings, there are these blue railings, and a lot of times you can find some critters along these blue railings. The one I usually shoot at is Curtain Pole Road, but this one is at the main Riverpark entrance. I have the C.B. Robinson Bridge right overhead, so you can hear traffic going across it, probably in this video clip. And this is a concrete path that leads down to a fishing pier. The Tennessee River is right there on the other side of those trees. The first shot I made was of an ant, a pretty large ant, and it was very patient and just sat there and kind of let me get my sea legs under me with this macro photography. It's really difficult, and I got a shot of it, and then the next thing I saw was a really small jumping spider, and I got a couple of shots of it. All right, here is that first ant photograph. You can see the settings up here, 1/100th f9 on almost everything today at 800 ISO. The most important thing for macro photography or portrait photography or bird photography is to get the eye in focus. And as you can see, I do have the eye in focus. There's not a whole lot of depth of field in this, but the most important part is in focus, so I'm satisfied with that. Here's the first jumping spider, same settings, 1/100th f9 and ISO 500. And this one is super tiny. I do a little bit better with jumping spiders that are a little bit larger. And this one does have some in focus areas, but it's not great. This setup is a lot different than what I was using before. I was using a Mikey MK320 flash, and that flash seemed to have a lot more power than this one. I'm having to shoot at 100% power and run more ISO than I used to shoot. So that's kind of interesting. Let's see, what am I doing? 500, 600, 700, 800 ISO, something like that. And f9 and 1/100th. So I'm going to continue and talk to you soon. This is a plant hopper, 1/100th f9, 800 ISO. I like the reflection here on the handrail. It had rained a little bit, so there was some moisture, and I think that added to the reflection. I wish the eye was a little closer and the tail was a little further away, or I wish it was perfectly parallel with the lens, but I do like the way this turned out, and I love the colors in this. The blue rail goes really nicely with the yellowish green of the plant hopper bug. There are 4 or 5 fishing piers along this part of the Tennessee Riverpark, and I came to the next one downstream from the last one where I got the ant and the spider, and I was walking down looking at the blue handrails, but there's also a concrete rail along this one. I don't know if I can get that in the frame. And there's some really small moss growing on it. And there were some roly-polies. That's probably not what they're actually called, but I've always called roly-polies. And I got a shot of one of those on some of this small, fine moss on top of this concrete and rock handrail holder, for lack of a better word. I think the shot's pretty cool. Here is the roly-poly shot, f9, 1/100th and ISO 640. Love the way this one came out. One of my favorite shots of the day. Here's the eye right here, and it's nice and sharp. And I like the colors in this, and I love what this looks like when it's walking on this area that I showed you in the previous video clip. Really happy with the way this shot turned out of the roly-poly there at the Tennessee Riverpark. So right here is where I got the roly-poly, and then I turned around and looked at this blue rail, and right here is a little inchworm that I managed to get a shot of. And while I mentioned earlier that I'm disappointed with the flash power, and maybe the diffuser blocks too much light, I'm not sure, I do like the look of the shots with the new, or my new, I should say, Cygnustech diffuser. Here's the inchworm there on the blue handrail, and you can see how tiny it is. Just compare the size of this inchworm to these paint chips. They're almost the same size. I think the eye is right here, these 3 little brown and white circles, and they are sharp. So
Happy with the way this one turned out. It's also ISO 640 and 1/100th at f9.
I continued down the handrail and found a really big jumping spider, and I was attempting to make a shot of it, and I got two shots that are kind of in focus, not really great, and it kept running towards me, and I would back up and it would run towards me and I would back up, and then it jumped onto my diffuser, and I was trying to get it off of the diffuser and I lost it. So hopefully one of those two shots I got was acceptable. If so, here it is.
Here's the larger jumping spider, and this was the best shot I got of it the first time I saw it, and it is definitely not sharp. There's some motion blur in it or some lack of sharpness. Something's not right about this shot, but stay tuned. I do see this same spider again later in the video. This one's ISO 500, otherwise the settings are the same. This is another jumping spider. It's also a little bit larger than the first one in the video, and I didn't document this one in the field. I didn't think I got a decent shot, but this shot's fairly good. It's still definitely not my best jumping spider shot of the day. This one has the same settings except the ISO is 640.
Well, I walked down the path all the way down to the end and made pictures of 2 or 3 things, nothing remarkable. And then I came back up to this spot where the larger jumping spider was that jumped up onto my diffuser, and he was here again, and I got a couple more shots of him. I think these are a little better than the first ones.
Okay, here is the second jumping spider that I found again. I'm back to ISO 500 for this, and this is probably my favorite jumping spider shot of the day. I've got its eyes are in focus, and most of its furry area right here is in focus, and that's what matters. And I love this particular one that has the black tufts of hair poking up off of it. Really cool looking shot. I just love photographing jumping spiders.
I came on down to the Fallen 5 Wreath of Honor Memorial, where Heather made the best picture that's ever been made of this place. I'll put a link to that video at the end, or maybe up in the corner. But anyway, this Wreath of Honor sign here had some ants on it, and I think I got one decent shot there.
This is the ant on the sign at the Wreath of Honor, and it's 500 ISO 1/100 f9. Thought this one turned out pretty good. Its eye is sharp, but it's not as tack sharp as the black ant earlier in the video. It's pretty sharp though. If it's off, it's not far off at all.
I figured out my flash problem, or at least some of it. I think I was in high-speed sync mode on the flash, maybe, and I pressed a couple of buttons and made that icon go away, and now I'm getting away with using half power instead of full power, so that's better. Although with my older flash I used a 1/4 power and sometimes an 1/8 power. I don't know. Half power should make the battery last longer, but I'm not having any trouble with the battery today. It's lasted all morning on the Godox V350.
Here's a really up close shot of a bumblebee. I didn't think I got a good shot of it, so I didn't document it in the field, but I think it turned out really good. This one's 500 ISO f9 1/100th of a second.
I've walked a little bit further downstream along the Tennessee Riverpark's sidewalks, and one thing this park has lots of, it's blue metal handrails. And as I walked down through here, I found a good-sized jumping spider that cooperated a little bit and allowed me to get, I think, at least one shot.
Here's another jumping spider that I found. I've accidentally knocked my camera to f8 for this one. I meant to be at f9 1/100th, ISO 400 for this one. And I got another shot of that same jumping spider. I realized my mistake and moved the camera back to f9. ISO is 250 on this one. Shutter speed's 1/125th of a second. I moved back a little bit further for this shot, and it turned out pretty good. It's still not my favorite jumping spider shot of the day. And here's one more ant photograph on the blue handrail. Got some lichens starting to grow here on the blue handrail, and the eye is nice and sharp. Maybe the red ant eye was sharp, but you just can't see the detail in it as much as you can on one of these black ants. I enjoy photographing these ants if they'll stay put long enough for me to get them in focus.
All right, that's going to do it for me here today at the Tennessee Riverpark using the R6 Mark II, the 100mm macro, the Cygnustech Diffuser, and the Godox V350c flash. Turns out I have to be somewhere in about 15 minutes, and time got away from me. Macro photography is hard, but it can be rewarding, and I encourage you to try it as well. Thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you like the content, subscribe and hit the bell. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye-bye.